of paper numbered 1 through 4, and that's going to determine the order in which you sit. So if you would do that, I'd appreciate it. And Jeff, I think you're the one that's left over there. So who's got number 1? All right, Mary Thomas, ladies first. You're going to be there in that first seat, and then you guys can do the math. Go ahead and take your respective chairs, if you would, please. Number 5, okay. Yeah. That may be a sign. First of all, thank you very much to all of our candidates. Obviously, this race is for Florida Congressional District 2 representative. These people travel a little farther than what our local candidates do, and this is our 3rd in a series of political debates put on by the Washington County Republican Executive Committee. Coming up, we'll have some of the other races, but arguably this race definitely is one that we're going to want to watch. All 4 of these candidates are Republicans. For my edification, there is a Libertarian still in the race. So this will go all the way to the general because of that Libertarian. Ordinarily, this race would be obviously decided in the primary, but that will not be the case. We have Brett Butler, who is currently one of our City of Chipley City Councilmen, and he will be our official timekeeper. You'll have a minute to introduce yourself, and then you'll have a minute to answer each question respectively. Brett will tell you, if he remembers, hopefully, that you'll have 10 seconds left, and then he'll tell you when you're out of time. We realize that a minute goes awfully quick, but this is we feel this is the most effective way, and bear in mind that you can use your minute to address any issue, not necessarily the question that was posed to you. But we will ask a question. We'll start with Mary Thomas when we do start the questions, and then 2, 3, and 4 successively. The next question will start with Ken in position number 2, so everybody will have a chance to answer their respective question first in sequence. All right, to start with, Ms. Thomas, if you'll go ahead, you have 1 minute to introduce yourself. You're alive, I believe.
My name is Mary Thomas. I'm a Christian, a constitutional conservative Republican, a wife, a mother, and a property rights attorney. And I have served as the top attorney for Governor Rick Scott. I was born in Charleston, South Carolina, to immigrant parents who came to this country legally from India in 1972, and they built a family medical practice from the ground up. I got my job working for Governor Scott, not because of who I knew or through political patronage, but by applying online. And I was interviewed and hired based upon my merits. I am running for Congress to save the American dream for my son Luke and the next generation, so that they can have the same opportunities that this great country has provided to me and my family. But today, that dream, our Constitution, Christianity, and America itself are under attack.
Thank you, ma'am.
I hope to have your support.
Thank you. My name is Ken Sukaya. I was the U.S. Attorney here under the first President Bush, and I have spent most of my life fighting on the front lines for the conservative causes that I believe in and that I hold dear. I, too, came to Christ when I was in college. I have committed myself to serving Him in a number of capacities, including fighting Planned Parenthood in an intense trial, defending the Parental Notice of Abortion Act in Florida, representing George W. Bush as his federal trial attorney in the 2000 recount battle, and fighting Obamacare 6 years ago when I was called in to assist the legal team that was bringing a case against Obamacare that came to the Supreme Court. So I thank you for the opportunity. I'm very heartened that so many people are here, and I just very much appreciate the opportunity to help you learn a little bit more about myself. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Dunn.
Thank you very much. My name is Neil Dunn. I'm a surgeon, a veteran, and a businessman from Bay County. I'm also a conservative Republican running for Congress because I believe that the country is worth fighting for. We have a nation that is a danger, but it's a danger not because of bad people doing bad things. It's a danger because of good people who watch and do nothing. We have a president who has substituted executive directives for laws. He has strangled the economy. He has destroyed healthcare, and he has gutted the military. We need to restore this country to the country it used to be. I want my country back, and I know you want your country back too. It's good to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We'll finish up with you, Mr. Moran.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Moran. I'm a retired law enforcement officer. I'm a successful small business owner, and I'm what we call a blue-collar conservative. I'm just a regular guy. I'm what the founding fathers envisioned when they set up the House of Representatives, someone that reflects the voters of the district. What's important to me? The same thing that's important to everyone else out there. National security, jobs, the economy, but most importantly, getting this country back to basics, back on track that we've gotten off from. As a business owner, I know what it's like to try to keep a business open, keep the doors open in an economy like this. I also know what it's like to deal with government regulations and the attorneys that they sick on you when you're trying to run a business. As a law enforcement officer, I know what it's like to serve. I'm used to running in when everyone else is running out. I will take that same determination to Washington, D.C. to fight for you and to fight for the Constitution as it was written. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'd ask going forward that you hold your applause until the end of the debate, just so that we can get as many questions in as possible. These questions were submitted, many in email, some tonight. All will be submitted in writing and then asked by me as moderator. We've found that eliminates some of the mean-spirited questions and takes out some of that factor that we try to eliminate as a fair and balanced debate. And so we'll start with you, Ms. Thomas, the first question. Some of these questions actually were repeats, so in some cases these are homogeneous joining of several different thoughts or questions. The Affordable Health Care Act, or Obamacare, is a politically charged hot potato. What will you do as U.S. representative to change, support, or abolish Obamacare?
Well, my parents are both physicians and small business owners, and they have seen the negative effects of Obamacare not only on our healthcare system, but also on our small businesses. The taxes and regulations are killing us. And I have always said that I believe in fully and immediately repealing Obamacare. And we need to get back to the free market as much as we can. And look at a bill such as H.R. 2300, which is a patient-centered, market-driven approach. It would actually save trillions of dollars, cover the same amount of people currently covered under Obamacare, but it would do it under a free market system. It would force the insurance companies to compete against each other, so we would be able to have better rates and decreased premiums. We need to bring the free market and get the federal government out of our lives as much as possible. And in Congress, I will support fully and immediately repealing Obamacare.
Thank you, ma'am.
Same
question, Ken, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I believe Obamacare is an effort to basically support Obama's agenda to redistribute the wealth in our country. And if you look at what's happened to our premiums under Obamacare, they have gone up, not just the premiums gone up dramatically, but the deductibles have gone up as well. And I think you may have seen that already in your own lives. And I think what it's doing is it's squeezing the middle class and causing them to fall under severe, heavy burdens. There is another effect, and that is that it has reduced dramatically the number of hours that our workers are working. And that's because if you have more than 50 employees, and it's also limiting the number of employees that small and medium-sized businesses can have. So I fully support repealing it and getting rid of it as soon as possible, because I think it is an inappropriate intrusion of the federal government into our private healthcare system.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Dunn.
Thank you. So I actually support repeal and replace of Obamacare as well. However, I bring to it the perspective of a surgeon. I have watched in the last 5 years as Obamacare has grown like a cancer on our healthcare system and it is now failing everyone, and the costs are spiraling out of control. Quite literally, no one is benefiting from this system, and it is breaking the bank of our great nation. We can replace this with a system that is patient-centered, market-driven, and responds to the needs of patients, not government bureaucrats. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Jeff, you have last word on that question.
I think anybody would be crazy to sit up here and tell you anything other than repeal and replace Obamacare. Of course, that's what we need to do. There's some simple solutions that we can do. When we talk about replace, I question what that means. I don't want to replace it with another government program. What we all want from our healthcare system is to make sure that it's affordable and accessible. You do that by opening insurance across state lines. You look at why the healthcare costs are up as they are. That's one of the things. The other thing we must look at is tort reform. That's one of the other things that's driving up the cost of healthcare. Well, I agree with what everyone else here says. There's one exception that I hear that no one has benefited from this. The insurance companies have. And why have the insurance companies have? Because they've had a hold of our Congress, of our legislators for too many years, and we need to take that away from them, and we need to make health care no more difficult to
Thank you, sir.
than car insurance.
We'll start with Ken Sakaya on the next question. And obviously this was going to be asked. Just this week we experienced one of the worst mass killings in the history of the United States right here in Orlando, but just one of many such events over the last several years. What is your stance on gun control?
I am a strong proponent of the Second Amendment. Our founding father said that free people ought to not only be armed, but they ought to have sufficient arms to defend that independence, not only from foreign governments, but from their own government itself. And there's a reason it was put into our Constitution. That was the reason. The first thing that an oppressive government does, it takes over the guns, the weapons of its citizens. And stop and think about what it would be like if you were told you could not have a weapon to defend yourself as you go through this life, if you knew you needed one. And so the question being, how do I feel about gun control? That's how I feel. But I would say that as the U.S. Attorney for this district, I put foreign and domestic terrorists behind bars. I prosecuted the narco-terrorists who were invading our shores. I prosecuted the Jamaican posse that
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I too am a strong proponent of the Second Amendment. I think in the specific instance that you brought up, the Orlando shooting, had some of the people been carrying weapons, it may not have had 50 dead. I think we should be allowed to protect ourselves in our homes and in the public. We need to protect that. And also, to put this in context, I have a gun hanging in my living room that was surrendered to George Washington by General Cornwallis at Yorktown. It hangs there to remind us of the importance of free men and women being armed to protect themselves from tyrants and from people like that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moran.
Let's make sure that we don't confuse gun control and the Second Amendment with domestic terrorism. As a law enforcement officer, I know that you don't have to go through proper channels to possess a firearm, to acquire a firearm. So many of our law enforcement individuals here know exactly how that is. It's not about keeping the guns out of the hands of good people. We need to make sure that we take care of this at the cause, at the root. If we can't even say what this is, radical Islamic terrorism, how are we going to fight it? If you don't know your enemy, you can't win. If you can't even say your enemy's name, there's no way we're going to win. As a law enforcement officer, I saw a lot of horrific crimes. I've never seen anything on this magnitude. I hope I never do. If you send me to Washington, I'll do everything I can to make sure no one ever sees something like this again.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Thomas, you have last word on this question.
I am a strong constitutional conservative, and I support defending all of our constitutional rights, including our Second Amendment rights. And what happened in Orlando was really a travesty. But that was caused by the acts of an evil person and radical Islamic terrorists. It wasn't caused because of guns. When President Obama issued his latest unconstitutional executive order, I didn't just say I wanted to protect the Second Amendment. I went on ABC News and gave a constitutional conservative's point of view. I talked about the president's overreach and how it's Congress's duty to defend our rights and liberties. Our current Congress won't do this, but as your representative, I will. And I will protect our constitutional and God-given rights to protect ourselves, our families, and our property. We need to keep our country safe from radical Islamic terrorism.
Thank you, ma'am. And Dr. Dunn, you'll be first on this question. The Obama administration marshaled a huge campaign war chest and a large media effort to defeat Steve Sutherland, previously holding the seat of Florida CD2 representative. To what do you attribute the fact that there's no Democrat candidate for this office during this election cycle?
Thank you. The straightforward reason that this is a Republican seat now is because of redistricting. The history of redistricting cannot be addressed in a one-minute answer. But this district is now, instead of R+2, that means leaning 2% to the Republican side, it leans 20% to the Republican side. So I'm certain that the Democrats looked at it and said, don't think any Democrat can win in this district. It is a homogeneously conservative district. And that's a good thing. That means we don't have to pander to any liberals. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moran.
I think they're not running because they know they can't win. I like to think that we've educated the people here in North Florida, and now they understand what it really means to be an American, and they understand the agenda and what we're doing and what we want to do to fight to preserve their rights. We need to make sure that Congress is reflective of the people in the district. That's what I want to do. I want to make sure that your voice is heard, and I truly believe that I am most reflective of the people in this district, and I will go to Washington and I will fight for you, and you know that your voice will be heard.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Thomas.
For me, this race is not about redistricting. I was the only candidate who declared to run against Gwen Graham under the old lines because I believe that the people of this district deserve to be heard. We deserve to protect the American dream. And that's why we actually have been traveling 1,800 miles plus on the car every single week, meeting with farmers, people in the logging and timber industry, riding horses, herding cows, learning about the people in our district. They're not being represented in Washington. The lobbyists and the special interest groups are being represented, and we need to fight against that. That's why I support Donald Trump, because he's an outsider just like me, and he's willing to stand up to the establishment and stand up for what our country needs. We need freedom. We need to get back to the Constitution, and we need to defend Christianity. That's what I'm going to do in Congress, and I stand with Donald Trump.
Thank you, ma'am. And Mr. Sakai, you got last word.
Here's the deal, and here's what happens in every race in a district like this. Everybody runs as a conservative. It's easy to memorize a script. It's easy to parrot what needs to be heard in this district. There's only one candidate here who has actually fought on the front lines in every one of the key issues affecting us in this race. Terrorism, I put them in jail. Immigration, I've enforced the immigration laws and put illegal immigrants in jail. Obamacare, I have fought Obamacare. Life issues, I fought for life issues, fighting Planned Parenthood. I testified only 5 weeks ago before Congress on Planned Parenthood's sale of fetal body parts. The military, I fought for the military's right to have their ballots counted in the 2000 election when I represented President Bush against Gore. I'm the only candidate who has fought and demonstrated his commitment to these issues by a lifetime of fighting for them.
Thank you, sir. And Ms. Moran, you'll be first on this question, and since the Donald's name was invoked, we'll go ahead and ask this one now. Vowing to possibly suspend immigration from certain countries and to possibly ban entirely Syrian refugees, Donald Trump is outspoken on his immigration stance. What are your thoughts about Trump's rhetoric and plan, and what do you feel is the correct course of action?
This is a nation of immigrants. I understand individuals' desires to come to this country.